Welcome to the Regen Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we have Matthieu Kohlmeyer, who is the founder and CEO of Tourangelle. Tourangelle is a French-American, family-owned and operated culinary oil maker. They're currently supporting regenerative agriculture with their regenerative organic certified sunflower oil and their soon-to-be-released regenerative olive oil. In this episode, Matthieu shares Tourangelle's 20-year history as a CPG brand and 150-year history producing artisan oils. He shares what makes their production and packaging unique from other players in the category, and he also details their future plans to support regenerative agriculture. Matthieu is a wealth of knowledge in all topics oil related, and he was nice enough to weigh in on the current seed oil debates, existing issues with counterfeit oils in the marketplace, and why scaling regen and oil products might look a little different than other categories. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands podcast. Very excited today to have our friend Matthieu from Tourangelle with us. So welcome, Matthieu.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Matthieu, it's so great to have you here. Thank you so much. It's going to be a fun episode for a couple of reasons. In the pre-show where we kind of talk about what we're going to talk about, we're already dropping F-bombs. We're talking about controversial stuff. I'm wearing a cardigan that makes me look like the dude in the Big Lebowski. So it's a positive vibe overall for this episode. But Matthieu, give us a quick lay of the land. For those who are not familiar with Tourangelle, what sort of products do you produce? Like what SKUs, and where can people find, Tourangelle today?
Sure. So Tourangelle is a family business. We make specialty culinary oils here in California. We have a mill in Woodland, California, next to Sacramento, where we press walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds, pistachios, and then organic olive oil and avocado oil. So we do a bunch of different specialty oils. They're sold in a beautiful can. Most stores, from Whole Foods to the natural stores to Safeway, Kroger, even Walmart, actually.
Wow.
And so comes in a can, Tourangelle, and our primary best-selling items would be avocado oil, organic olive oil, grapeseed oil, walnut oil, sesame oil. So basically good oils with nice flavors.
Love it. I appreciate you setting the table for us. There are so many questions we have about oil today, but we'll let AC kick us off with getting into the origin story.
Yeah, and I'm trying to wrap my arms around how we're going to get through all of it because y'all do have so many SKUs and there's so many oils, and I'm interested to talk about, all of them. And I think my story to kick us off is my girlfriend had private label Trader Joe's olive oil, and this stuff was literally clear, like it looked like water. And I brought the Tourangelle olive oil over there, and I was like, hey, this is what olive oil is actually supposed to look like. So I hope we can do a little bit of that kind of comparison so people leave with some more information there. But Matthieu, take us back to the origin story. I mean, the processes and the legacy of this brand dates back to the 1800s. If my data is correct, y'all have been around as a CPG company for the last 20 plus 25 years. So How did this all get started, and what's kind of the origin story?
Cool. Yeah. So Tourangelle is initially a French company. We still operate in France, actually. Tourangelle, it technically got started in 1867 in France, in the Loire Valley. And it was this really, really small oil mill making walnut oil. So picture, like 4 people working in a tiny shop making walnut oil on the bank of the Loire River. It's a tradition over there. You can see that walnut oil has been made in this region since the Middle Age. So very long culinary tradition. And Tourangelle was essentially one of these guys making this thing. So my father ended up, through a series of events, taking over this tiny company back in the early 1990s.
Wow.
And essentially took this walnut oil process and scaled it to be a semi-industrial process. And then California is the world's largest producer of walnuts, pistachios, almonds. And somehow there was a connection with there, and me, I was just looking to start a company, looking for the right entrepreneurship project.
Yeah.
And I talked to my dad, and he's like, dude, these guys in the US are saying we should do a company in the US to make walnut oil. I have no idea if we should do it, but why don't you fly there and investigate if you feel like you're a I was really down for it. I said, sure. I took my backpack and I just wanted to travel. I love to hitchhike and, I'm saying just kind of like travel the world. So went there and checked it out and found the natural industry was booming. That was in 2000. Found that California was bountiful for plenty of nuts, plenty of stuff to use to make amazing oils. And also found an investor, essentially a joint venture partner, who was like, dude, if you want to do it, we'll put the money down. And I was like, this is incredible.
Wow.
I'm 23. This guy is ready to put money. And, I got my father. He's
delivering on the promise, man. The American dream. Amazing.
Look, you're not believe. I'm in this office of this VP, and this guy, I'm like 22, and the guy looks at me, is like, why don't you start the project? And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I'm like, I'm 12, and this guy is giving me money. I'm like, okay. So that's how it got going. So yes, definitely the California dream. And so I came here, built a small walnut oil mill, pretty much mimicking what we were doing in France. And then came to realize quickly that it was going to be a steep climb, because I was like, God, we don't have any distribution. None of my two partners, be my father or the other guys, have any idea for now to sell in retail. And so that's when I created. Yeah.
The plan all along from the beginning, Matthieu, was to be CPG, or was it to do food? Like, was it multi-pronged from a sales?
No, frankly, the initial idea of the two partners was like, well, we'll sell in bulk. So we'll find brands we can sell our stuff to. Obviously, no one cared for the work we were doing. So, and very, very quickly, I came to realize it was going to be 100% CPG.
Yeah.
So I created I took the Tourangelle name that existed, but I recreated the brand, the packaging. All you know about it today is essentially was built in 2002. And then just started selling, and that walnut oil was the first product, and then we added grapeseed, and then we kept on adding products over the years. But really, really quickly, we could see that we had tons of traction. The packaging was really attractive and really conveyed the strengths and the quality of the product. And then because the quality of the product was so fantastic, and because we were making it ourselves, we could offer a really tremendous value for the price. So we were a premium affordable brand. So we came to shelf, the packaging sold it, and then people, when they try it and use it, they realize it's vastly superior in quality because we make it so we can bypass the 22 middlemen that's usually in between the maker and actually the shop, the store. So that's really what was the fundamental of the brand initially. Like, we make the product, so we know we can make something superior, but that's nothing if you can't communicate this properly to your customers. We did that through the packaging, and then we kept on adding other oils because that's what we do. And every time we come to a new oil category, we say, what do we think should be the best, or should be not the best because you can always do better, but should be something that we feel really strong about, that is going to be a high quality product yet still affordable. I mean, the goal is to be a premium affordable brand. So we want to be sold in supermarkets. You have to picture, when I started the brand 20 years ago, people were like, you can sell this stuff for $35. Go for it. Like, it was kind of, it was like 2001, the bubble was really about to burst. It felt you could sell anything for anything.
Yeah.
But that was not the right approach to use. Still, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a CPG product. People are going to use it every day. So you have to stay. Anyway, so that's basically what we have done. And here I am 22 years later and still talking to you guys.
Amazing.
It's amazing, man. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious because, the packaging is beautiful. You also are in a very unique format relative to the rest of the category. So from like the inception point, have you always been in, I believe it's an aluminum, like canned container. Is that correct?
No, it's tin.
It's tin.
Yeah.
So have you always been in the tin with like this sort of branding, or has that evolved over time? And if so, like, why did you land on this tin container?
We started with a tin container. Back in 2003, we launched the brand.
Was that also very rare back when you first brought it in? Like,
yes,
the original container?
So it was a traditional product. It was a traditional packaging in France, meaning you found oils, not oils sold in tin cans. So that's why we did it. That being said, when I came to the US market, I mean, dozens of buyers told me, like, dude, that looks like a, oil can for your car. You should change that. That's not going to fun.
I love when Matthieu goes to his American accent, his American voice.
I was just going to say that. We need more of that.
It's so good.
It always starts with dude, which is so appropriate because he's in California.
Exactly. So anyway, that obviously worked out, but initially it was not going to work out. So whatever, it definitely worked, but it was a step. Initially, it was not that obvious, I should say. And clearly it's trending well. I mean, it's a great packaging. It's light. So I think people don't really understand, but I mean, glass bottles weigh a ton. So the CO2 footprint of a glass bottle that you move around the country is really not that great. Even though you recycle it, it's still very heavy. And then really oils they're very, very reactive to light, not only oxygen, but also light. And so you really want to protect it. So the can is really an ideal packaging for that. You get the light, recyclable, and also very protective of the oil. And I tell you, we have numerous examples of batches of oil which were a bit borderline on antioxidant. So basically, it's like you go naked in nature. You have no good jacket. You're going to get cold really quickly. And so if the oil doesn't have enough antioxidant to start with, it's going to age not great. But if we've seen numerous times when it's in a can, it's protected so much better than the same product in a glass bottle, because we do a lot of private label, and so we do glass as well for other customers. And the same batch is going to age very, very differently if it's in a can or a bottle. So it's not just a marketing gimmick. It does make sense.
Super interesting. Matthieu, I'm curious. You mentioned the vertical integration already with I believe there's a production facility in California and still in France, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so you mentioned being able to cut out some middlemen. Like, what does the typical process look like for other oils that come to shelf versus y'all? Are y'all buying, the end nut if it's a walnut directly, and then doing everything else from there? Compare your process with others just so we can understand that.
Yeah, so for nut oils, because we make it, so essentially what we'll do is we'll take the nuts and roast it and then press it. And because we do everything, we control the entire quality process.
Right.
Are you actually doing the growing as well, or are you sourcing those from like local farms in NorCal?
Well, we have 10,000 olive trees, which sounds like a lot, but it's really small. We have about 20 acres of basically of land around our property where we planted olive trees, but it's more of a small fraction of our supply. So our job is to buy from large farming operation and then transform that into oils. Look, most of the CPG brand we compete with are basically created by folks who are in an office somewhere. They go through a co-packer, so they don't control the packing. And then they'll just go to some kind of trader that imports the oil from overseas, tell them that it's obviously the best ever they've ever tried in their life. The guy is trying to make money. You have to think, if almost any oil, you have hundreds of producers, or maybe dozens of producers from all over the world. You have all kind of different qualities. There are a lot of different people involved. So the quality may be quite different in the end. So the fact that either we make it ourselves or we buy directly from producers that we know very well, that we visit, that you'd be surprised, but there are. Look, that's what we do. So it's always direct import or manufacturing ourselves. We bottle everything we sell, and we have 2 labs where we analyze everything. So that's the vertical integration. Is really about knowledge about the product. So if you make oils, you just know. And when you talk, it's like, if you fix cars and to put an engine together, you're going to be a much better buyer because you know what you're doing. If you just like, I like the sound, it looks great. It's more challenging. So that's kind of what it is. So for avocado oil, we currently are not making it ourselves. We're building a manufacturing plant in Peru, in Lima, to make it ourselves.
Wow.
But like when we buy from various sets of people in different countries, to depending on the time of the year and so on, we're really very technical about it, and you really have to, because there's so many different qualities. I mean, yesterday I was quoting a customer that we haven't sold in a while, and they sell to cosmetic stuff in bulk. Literally, the woman replied to me saying, "Well, what you guys sell, is it the real stuff or is it the cosmetic grade?" That's literally what she wrote. I was like, wow. Yeah, it's the real stuff. I'm like, really? Yeah. I do have to write that? I mean, it's like, yes, it is indeed almond oil. It's not just a blend that I call almond oil because it looks like almond oil. So yeah, the oil industry has some folks who sometimes it's a bit surprising to see what they think is proper to do or not.
My question, Matthieu, is like, what does that QA process look like when vats of oil show up at your doorstep? Like, are y'all smelling it, tasting it, like pHing it? Like, what does it actually look like to grade to your quality standards? I'm so curious about that.
That's a great question. So oils are defined. You have some chemical parameters that you can, and then there are some parameters that are more organoleptic. So they're about tasting and smelling, as you said. The first step is to indeed do a chemical analysis. So It's really simple in a sense. Most oils, they contain about 99% fat, so different types of fatty acids, and 1% things that are not fat. There are things that are soluble in fat. And so if you think of it, if the oil is refined, has no flavor, no smell, how can you make the difference between two oils? If I tell you it's a grapeseed oil, or if I tell you it's an avocado oil, or it's a cheap soybean oil, it all looks pretty much the same. What's going to change is the fatty acid profile is going to be different. And then the unsaponifiable, so the things who are this 1% stuff that are diluted in the oil, is going to be unique, or mostly unique, or at least they have some unique features. So what we do in the oils that we get, first we're going to do a peroxide value and a free fatty acid analysis, which is going to tell you if it's the acidity and if it's old or fresh. And then we're going to do a fatty acid profile. So essentially we're going to take all these fatty acids and we're going to weigh them. And then it's going to give you a distribution of these fatty acids. And each oil is supposed to have a typical fatty acid profile. If the fatty acid profile is off, there's something off. So people cheating in oils, usually, if they really think you're stupid, they won't even bother. They'll just send you the hey dude, I tell you, this is the best avocado you ever had. It's literally just soybean oil, but if you don't do a fatty acid profile. Now, the people who are a bit more sophisticated in their cheating will basically try to mimic oils that have very similar fatty acid profile. So to give you an example, hazelnut oil has almost the exact same fatty acid profile as olive oil. Macadamia nut oil has almost the same fatty acid profile as avocado oil, and so on. Okay, so if depending on market conditions, whatever you can find, you may find that it's more interesting. Obviously, it's the best would be that you take a soybean oil that costs 50 cents a pound and you sell it for $3.50 as an avocado. I mean, that's like money in the bank. Right. So that's the type of people. So fatty acid profile is a good way, but sometimes people are really going to be sophisticated and just find the exact same fatty acid profile, like I mentioned. In that case, you're obviously going to go to the 1% and look for something that is very unique to an oil. So most of the tests I just described to you, we do internally. But some of this unsaponifiable identification, you're starting to be quite sophisticated there. So there we'll maybe send that outside for an outside analysis. And then you can also use AI because AI is so trendy. So indeed, you can use clusters and stuff like that. And basically, instead of looking for one marker of is it true or right or no, like yes or no, you can use an approach through magnetic resonance where it's going to basically look at a bunch of parameters and cluster the oils. And so if the point of so essentially, there are more sophisticated way coming now of identifying if it's likely to be a cheat or if it's likely to be the real stuff.
That's fascinating. I had no idea that oils were getting MRIs to validate their authenticity. But apparently that's the case. Who knew? I'm really curious. I know we haven't even scratched the surface on Regen yet, and I apologize for another question that's not going to get us there. So it's coming. But I think it's really fascinating, all these different tests that you all have to do. And there was recently an article that came out, maybe it was a couple of years ago, looking at 14 different, quote, avocado oil brands out there. And I think 2 of them were legit. And I'm curious from a regulatory perspective, does the USDA and or FDA just not test, not care, and people are allowed to do this, just pretend they don't know what's happening? Or to me, it feels almost impossible that should be the case, that a consumer can walk into a grocery store, purchase something that says avocado oil and have it not be avocado oil. So why is that even possible?
Dude, that's a really good question, isn't it?
I think so.
My guy's on fire today with the cardigan. He's beautiful today.
It's incredible. It's incredible that you have to ask this. People are that convinced that some of their cops everywhere are checking stuff, and it's definitely not the case because it's an obvious fact that you can define what is an avocado oil or not. I mean, sometimes it's borderline, but I tell you, when we go on shelf and we take private label from very large supermarket chains that are very reputable, like billion-dollar companies on the stock market. And we check, and it's it takes us $20 analysis to see that it's not what it is.
What a joke. That's crazy.
Remember the fatty acid profile? Avocado oil, if you take 25 years of analysis, you've never seen an avocado oil that has more C18-0 than 1%. You test the oil, and it has 2% of C18-0. What? The avocado was weird and said, I'm just going to double the amount of C18-0 I'm going to produce. It never happened. But a fatty acid profile test, takes really not a big deal. You're not saying, I'm going to send something to Germany and it's going to cost me $600 and I'll have a result in 3 weeks. No, any lab can do it here. And so why is people, because they're just, they're just like this, like, oh no, I can't see shit. It's great. The price I had was perfect. And the FDA is not there because the FDA is underfunded because, hey, no one wants the FDA really in the US, it feels like. So no one is controlling this stuff. Look, I'll tell you a story. I should not even tell this story, but it's so funny. I was at Expo West. Okay, Expo West. When was that? Last month?
Yeah.
Like the story you tell me about avocado oil is nothing new. I mean, everybody know in the avocado industry that there are folks cheating. And I had this very large brand come to me, and this person literally told me, I'm not saying nothing, just she's like, yeah, internally we have two oils we call. There is the Codex oil. I don't know if you know Codex, and then there is the regular stuff. Codex is the international regulation that define what avocado oil is. So this person had the gut to come on our booth and tell me that she essentially had the regular straight product that is what it is because it meets Codex regulation, and the product that they call avocado oil that definitely did not meet that. And I was like, but you realize you're coming on my booth telling me that you sell a cheated products and you're fine with it. Like, this is incredible. So yes, some people just play dumb, and you're like, dude, you should understand if Codex define a rule, it's because that's what it is. It's 160 countries coming together to define what avocado oil should be.
Wow.
This is avocado oil. It's not like these guys came up with a weird regulation. They just agreed, hey, let's all guys agree on what should be the fatty acid profile of avocado oil. That's basically what they did. It took them 5-10 years. They did it. It just came out. So now if you want to know if your avocado oil is proper, just go to the Codex. All these countries argued for years on what should be the proper fatty acid profile, that if you say it's avocado oil, this is what it is. Anyway, so why is it happening? Because the demand is incredible. The market is growing, and it's tough to find, and it's expensive. And then you have folks coming along saying, I can make it, I have it available and the price is competitive. Oh, perfect. How convenient. Yeah, but your fatty acid profile is slightly off. Oh, it's because of elevation. Well, in my dude, you don't realize 6,000 feet elevation is different than 2,000. It changes the fatty acid profile. Or when I refine it, I change the fatty acid profile. But it's normal. Don't worry, it's fine. All the time. So you'd be surprised. Anyway, so that's why it's happening. But frankly, I think any brand who is serious about it, they'll know. But I've talked to so many brand owners or marketers who are just saying, no, I think it's proper. I think it's clean. They don't really want to know. Anyway, sorry. It's
so, no.
If you buy cheap avocado oil, it's not.
It's super important that as an industry, that this is something we discussed, and one of the things that this is kind of bringing us towards Regen is like one of the keys to a truly regenerative brand is like proximity to the growing or the farming or the quality of whatever it is that's being sold, right? You all have that for all of your products, but I want to dive deeper into the Regen side. Like, when did regenerative agriculture become a term and or a priority for you, and how did you start to incorporate that into the La Tourangelle portfolio?
Yes, so I mentioned I started the brand initially making walnut oil, and the goal was to promote what we knew how to do, and it was this traditional product. And then we essentially built strengths and became a bigger brand and started selling more oils. And so at some point, I really came to realize we had built a lot of muscle, and I wanted to put this muscle to work for the right things. And then you come to realize as you scale that you can make impact. I mean, relative, it's small, but we're a small company. But that being said, still, you can try to push the right things. So back in 2019, I was starting to be quite interested in organic regen. And I felt, hey, why is there any oil brands that are selling organic regen? Dr. Bronner was starting to do it in Sri Lanka with coconut oil. But there was not much else happening. And so I started calling around, trying to see if I could find folks I could help. Essentially, I can use my muscle to try to help you guys out. I couldn't find anyone. There was just no one making organic regen oil. I mean, there were marketers talking about it, but there was no one really involved. So then I went further, and eventually I found a farmer who was actually not the certification at the time, but it was in the process of. And so I said, hey, could you guys grow sunflower for us? And then we'll press it. And then we can try to essentially promote what you're doing and try to tell the story of soil health. And look, if you come to a store and there no one nowhere does it ever explain how it's made, where it's made, what's the deal, And so it really was about that. So we did the first 20 acre of organic regen seed oils back, I think, in 2020 or 2021. Essentially, that was the start. So it's been about 4 years. And scaling that is interesting. Initially, we'd come to Whole Foods and then no idea what we talked about. They're like, "Oh, great, Regen, yeah, thank you." And then and now they're all over it. So now we've scaled this thing from sunflower to flax, and now we're just launching an olive oil actually at Whole Foods coming from Greece. It's the first organic regenerative olive oil. It's going to be on shelf this summer.
Amazing!
So
Congrats!
It's coming along, but it's still. And look, the movement is still in its infancy. There is still in the oil business, there is still a very steep premium for Regen because it's super specialty. It's very small, so you can't benefit from all the scale that you need to have in order to be price competitive. So, it's still super premium and quite expensive. And I'm hoping it's gonna, as it scales, we're gonna be able to be more price competitive. But it's getting there, and I think for now what's cool is that we see supermarkets really supporting the initiatives. 3 years ago, people had no clue, so it's changing very quickly. So hopefully, consumers are gonna follow that as well.
Well, I think that's what makes y'all a really interesting case study to me, Matthieu, is, not all the products are even organic yet. It's all non-GMO, if I'm looking at the website correctly. It's some conventional, some organic, and now you have some rock products as well.
Yeah.
As y'all think through that, with accessibility being this thing that you've kind of wanted to be tethered to from the beginning that you've already mentioned, how do you see like product innovation and price architecture there? Do rock products just replace the organic SKU and that serves the natural channel? Do they sit next to that organic SKU in the natural channel? How do you see all that coming together from a product innovation and sourcing perspective?
Well, you have to keep in mind that most oils that we sell, if you look, walnut oil, avocado oil, grapeseed oil, almond oil, all the oils I just mentioned, they are made of byproducts of an industry. So it's a circular economy. Mm-hmm. No one, like if we can make grapeseed oil, it's because the only reason it's because people make wine. So I can't control what comes to me. So if now organic Regen wine becomes the big thing, and now you have most of the volume is actually organic, then I can make organic grapeseed oil easily.
Yeah.
But right now, organic wines is still really small in the category. So if I'm going to take a byproduct of a small thing, it's going to be tiny. It's going to be real. So making organic grapeseed oil at scale is pretty much impossible today. You can make small scale, really small scale, but you can't make it at scale. So our grapeseed, I can't be organic, but I'm already taking a waste and I'm turning into a good product. Right. So in a sense, from a CO2, whatever you want to say, from an ecological standpoint, it's great. At least you're giving a second life to something. Walnuts, it's a bit the same. Now, if you think sunflower or flax or even olive, you grow. That's the reason you grow it. It's because you're going to press it. And also keep in mind, when you make oils, you really make cake to feed animals. So the oil industry is driven, most seeds that we press, it's 50-50 oil and protein. And so you have to think, it works if you can monetize the protein side. So if you can find someone who says, I'm going to pay for the organic feed because I really need it for my organic cows, now suddenly you can make the product. If no one gives you any premium for it, it's going to be tough because now the oil has to pay for the entire premium. So it's the economics. So basically, the short answer to your question is that each oil has its own economics, and some you can do fairly easily organic Regen, and some it's going to be really challenging because you do not control where it's coming from. You're basically at the mercy of what the industry does. Avocado is the same. Avocado, we buy the weird tiny avocados, the ones who have small damage. The really nice looking ones, they end up at the supermarket shelf sold for like $1 or $2 a pop. So you can't compete with that making oil. So oil is about taking the ugly ones and making good stuff out of it. So that's why we try for organic Regen, we're trying to take crops that are fairly easily, you can transition fairly easily. I think the issue we're facing right now in scaling Regen for us is that when we come to larger farmers in Europe, they don't really fully understand what we mean by this Regen stuff. A lot of people doing Regen are not organic. And if you tell them, no, I want you to be Regen and organic, they're like, no, dude, I'm going to use at least once a year. I want to be able to do this, which is not legal in organic. But if not, the yield loss is such that I just can't afford it. But yet I'm doing all the other things right. And then you're like, oh, yeah, but I know, but my consumer is first an organic consumer, and that's the one who's going to pay the premium for Regen. Even though really the goal should be that all agriculture moves first to Regen, that would be such a huge savings for the world. But it's not the way it works right now. So it's been really a difficult thing to say. And I had this issue, same in Montana, where we're trying to scale a program for seeds. And the guys were like, they were doing a lot of Regen stuff already, and they're not getting a dime for it. Meaning it's no one's like on the label, you can't say that these guys are doing the right thing, but they're not organic because they just don't want to go there because they don't think it's going to be worth their while. So it's Regen organic. It's from a marketing standpoint, you're better off to be Regen and organic. But from a farming and CO2 capture standpoint, if you truly just try to make, you're trying to fight global warming, it's going to be a different story because you're trying, in order to make an impact, you need thousands of acres and farmland to achieve. And organic by nature is more specialty, so you're going to be much smaller volume. So anyway, the story is a bit tricky there.
Matthieu just nailed the Regen Brands manifesto in the last 2 minutes. Oh, I love it so much.
He did. He killed it. And I want to share a story that's very similar. So I work for Kettle on Fire. We are a bone broth maker, and we, like you, utilize a byproduct to try to make bone broth, right? Nobody's raising cattle to sell bones. So if we, and this is something we struggle with today, is like we want to get more regenerative bones into our supply chain, but it's hard for us to spur on that transition because they're like, well, we need Regen beef purchasers if you're going to get bones. And that's really like the higher economic upside for anybody who's producing cattle. So it's a real struggle. And our supply chain is 2 different types of bones. I can't even imagine the level of complexity you all have to face with various different types of nuts, seeds, so on and so forth, and the level of commoditization and global sourcing there. It's just got to be incredibly challenging to navigate all that. So just want to share that perspective. And I really love what you said about, especially as a rock brand, saying that we need to get regenerative going first. I think that's really, really important. And I'm curious from the agronomy side, why is it that the growers are so hesitant to do organic? You mentioned there's one thing, maybe is it just a little bit of spraying here or there? What's the barrier for these farmers who don't want to commit to the organic certification despite all of their regenerative practices?
Well, I mean, look, to transition organic, you have to have 3 years of organic farming. You need a bunch of audits, and it's money. And then a lot of times you won't find someone who's going to buy your organic crop or pay you the premium that you want for your organic crop. And if you sign organic, it's a big commitment. And as a farmer, if you are by yourself, I don't know, I'm not a farmer. I'm not going to pretend I'm a farmer. But I mean, to me, frankly, anytime I work with farmers, every time, I feel they are the strongest and the sharpest businessmen I've ever seen. Yeah. It's like the most difficult business ever. You deal with nature. You don't control any of it. It's like whatever, animals everywhere and nature and weather, and there's none of it that you control. And yet they're trying to work this thing, usually with a tiny crew, with a bunch of equipment. So I get it. You're saying, hey, can you make your life way more difficult, please? Because I want to pay attention more. Yeah, it's a challenge. So I get that. So usually when I go to these farmers who are really, a lot of them are struggling to get by. And so it's it has to be an obvious financial choice, and it's a long-term choice for them. For us CPG, you can kind of pivot and change, but these guys are planning 5 years out, if not way more. So I kind of get it, and so they need guaranteed. They need to know they're going to have a customer. They need to move the volume, and it has to be at the right price. Anyway, so it's a bit tricky economics, but so that's what it is. I think organic Regen has room to grow a lot, and I think what we're about to see this transition, because right now what we see that when Whole Foods, Costco, and all these big players are starting to really push it. Now I think it's going to be much easier for us to go to some large partners who are already organic certified, and are already going through the pains of managing all these QA processes and saying, hey guys, we just found a new thing that you should sign up on. It's called Regen, and they're like, really, another one? Thanks. But once they see there is money to be made, or that it's going to be worth the effort, then so I think at this point we can get some really large co-ops to jump on board, and suddenly you can be competitive on price. Because frankly, in Spain, for example, we work some organic olive co-ops, which are really significant and large. One of our key suppliers were the first organic olive oil mill in Spain back in the 80s, when organic was not even yet defined by European Union.
Wow.
So, it's a village where these guys, I'm saying, they're really proud of it. It's been 40 years that they are at the forefront of organic. So these guys will be the first one to go regen if they feel it's really the right thing to do. But they need to know that it's long-term, just not a fad that, whatever, the trendy term that everybody's excited about in 3 years from now is going to change. But so I think we're about to be able to be convincing enough that they'll be like, okay, you know what? This thing is here to stay. We're going to go for it. And then suddenly you can come with an olive oil that is pretty much the same price as an organic that is regen. Mm-hmm. and not, you know what I'm saying? So it's this.
Yeah.
We need to create this more. It's step by step.
Yeah. I certainly don't envy the level of complexity you're dealing with there and the amount of crops, Matthieu. I mean, I think it's really, really challenging. And I think we need to always bring the conversation back to ultimately, if the farmer economics don't work, none of this works. And so we have some really cool brands that are making that work, but a lot of them are extremely direct trade or fully vertically integrated. So it makes it hard still, but it's less complex. And when you have kind of this upcycling component or already the complexity there, I mean, that's an increased challenge. And I also think there's a lot more space for us to kind of talk about this overlap between upcycling and regen, because ultimately they should both be tools to increase the farmer economics, and they should stand side by side in how we leverage them to do that. And I think I'm bullish on them having a greater intersection, because ultimately it should bring more money back to the farm gate, which should enable better practices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's pushing everything. I mean, the end goal here is just to say that we're trying to put less pesticides in nature. We're trying to leave less ground just bare and, losing its value. And we're trying to be a resilience. So it's all of these initiatives together that eventually pushes the right thing. So I think regen, the first challenge with regen is to, consumers understand what does it mean. I don't think folks understand that when you drive through farmland and when you see like bare land with nothing on it, that's not great. Like nature doesn't do that naturally. You don't really want this stuff. And yet you see hundreds of acres sometimes like that. People don't seem to like obviously I live in California. When you drive and you see a bunch of almond trees, like almond orchards, where it's like there is not one grass. And it's just like the land is bare. Like you're like
it's dirt and trees.
Yeah, it's dirt everywhere, and you're like, wow, how can these guys manage? I mean, look, we have an olive orchard. I'm like, grass is right everywhere. I'm like, God, this is a pain in the ass. Like, I'm discovering what the farmer is. It's very challenging. So I get why they would do that, but anyway, sometimes they do it. They'll do better because. That's what they want to do, and sometimes they need a financial incentive.
Right.
Anyways, so regen, organic, there are many ways to get there. I think it's all going in the right direction in a sense. Mm-hmm. But it's only going to really work if the price though remains competitive, and that's kind of the challenge we're seeing right now.
Right.
The price of a commodity changes all the time. Like in sunflower and oils, we've seen the price go like crazy up in the last couple of years. Now it's coming down. So when the price of everything was higher, it was a bit easier to have organic regen because you're already high anyway. When everything comes down again, you're like, God, the spread is going to be the gap can be quite significant. And I don't know.
Not to mention if people are making fake oils and that bringing down the price even more. I mean,
yeah, crazy. And yes, well, that's look. It's not. I don't want to put the entire industry under the bus, though. I mean, look, it's true though in avocado oil. But it's usually what happens is that when a specialty oil grows very quickly, you have some rogue actors, people playing stupid. We're going through a cleanup process. In any case, the fact that this Codex regulation came out now, so what it means is that all these countries agreed. So now there is no argument. Like any supermarket buyer can say, are you meeting Codex? That's it. They can just simply ask. In the past, the guy could always argue, no, it's not true. Like, there are many ways to define what an avocado, because if it comes from Ethiopia, from Mexico, from Peru, or from Colombia, it's going to be different, which is not a stupid argument. You could argue, like, we all know plants look different in different countries. So, obviously, if it comes from Colombia or from Africa, you could argue the fatty acid profile is going to be different. So, but now all these countries have agreed that it should be within this limit, and even within this limit, you can, I'm sure some folks will find ways to cheat a bit on the side, maybe, but at least it's going to narrow the bandwidth a lot. So let's not be too negative. What I'd like to say though is that what we're trying to do as a brand is to also to explain to consumers that going with a product that is 100% fully refined, like a lot of people are buying avocado oil that is 100% fully refined, and they're thinking it's much better for me. It's awesome. I should take this product. As an oil maker, it's a bit excessive to say that. What makes avocado oil that great is the antioxidant that are naturally in the oils. But if you refine it fully, you strip out everything, or most everything. So just like folks understand today that you need to have extra virgin olive oil, what's really is great about olive oil is the extra virgin piece, is the fact that the product has not been refined. So all the natural antioxidants in olives are still in the oil, or the ones that are soluble in oil. So as a brand, that's what we're trying to promote. Obviously, it should be avocado oil. It should not be cheating. But the point is that it should be an avocado oil that is not fully refined. And that's what we're trying to explain to people. Come on, man. If you're really going to do this choice for nutrition and accept to pay so much more, don't buy 100% refined avocado oil. Because in that case, you may as well buy sunflower. It's the same product. It literally has been stripped out of all its benefits. And so this thing around seed oil is bad, but avocado oil refined is great. It's like, hold on a minute. It doesn't make any sense chemically. It's my organic iodic sun and their avocado oil is the same fatty acid profile, more or less. But if you don't refine it, it's very different. If you fully refine it for your health, it's almost the same. And now one costs a third, if not even less than the others. So you may want to check that out. Obviously, I'm not preaching my inquiry here because people want to sell more stuff expensive. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that, it's good to pay attention to oils, but you have to, again, if it's fully refined, it's not that great. And that's people with olive oil understood that no one buys extra light olive oil anymore. Everybody buys extra virgin. Well, in avocado oil right now, it's the exact same. People are buying extra light avocado oil thinking it's awesome. I guarantee you in a few years, they'll be like, oh, I get it. Why would I buy fully refined? But Chosen Food are the leading brand. It's fully refined. And everybody's thinking it's the best for the health. I'm like, dude, stick with extra virgin olive oil. It's better for you. I tell you that.
Yeah. Right. What I'm realizing is the level of complexity and the things that oil consumers are going to have to learn, right? It's not just, it's hard enough to be a regenerative brand, right? Talking about like soil health principles, the differences between all these different oils and their fatty acid profiles, whether or not they are or are not refined, the type of container they're in and how light affects them moving forward, how they're going to age differently. It's
the culinary applications. We haven't even gotten into the culinary applications and how those differ.
Smoke point. Like it is very, very complicated. But I do want to draw back to something you mentioned earlier. Like I think you said something along the lines of it's really important for consumers to understand what regenerative means. And I could not agree with you more. And I'm curious, given the level of complexity and education you all have to do as a brand, how are you thinking about regenerative education and making sure that your consumers are aware of what this is, what it means, and why it's better for them?
Look, we are CPG guys. We don't sell all the technical stuff we talked about just now. It's complex. It's difficult. What we sell is emotion. We don't sell none of that. I can write 1 million words on the label. Actually, Dr. Bronner works. So some brands do 1 million words, but it's more. What I'm trying to say is that at the end you're selling emotion, and so look, I'm French. Obviously, I have no accent, so it's very convenient. You don't hear that. No, but my point is that French wine, French food is all about terroir. So I don't know if you know the terroir is really that the wine that you drink is the expression of the soil. So if it grows on this parcel, it's going to give you this flavor. If it grows on this parcel, it's going to be this flavor. And that's been the case for hundreds of years because the sun exposure, because the soil composition, because the underlying rocks, and so on. And so that's essentially what a brand is conveying is terroir. And to me, terroir is more about emotion than actual technical explanation. Why is it that this Bordeaux is incredible and it costs $1,000 a bottle? No one really, a few people understand. Most people have no clue. They're just like, this shit is great. So it's emotion. They're like, oh, this is premium stuff, and obviously they can be misleading into believing it's amazing, even though it's a $2 chug they just drink. But so my point here is that as a brand, what I'm trying to do is we do the right thing. We're going to try to push all the right things, but at the end, it's going to be a beautiful packaging that conveys a sense of quality and terroir. Then it's going to do the job. And so that's basically what it is. So Regen, yes, Regen is great. No one understands how you farm stuff. So like explaining that, you should have cover crops, that you should have animals on the land once in a while to like fertilize naturally and all that. Wow, that's going to be a steep climb when indeed, folks are not even understanding what extra virgin means or when, But at the end of the day, if you trust a brand, if the brand conveys, then becomes the job of the brand. To me, consumers are basically delegating to the brand the job of doing the right thing. And that's why you're so outraged. You're like, what? People are cheating? Is that possible in America? I mean, it should never happen. America is great. You're like, yeah, well, okay, wake up call. Many rules. But that being said, anyway, so story short, to me, it's about creating emotion and conveying a sense of message.
Yeah, cool. It's more about selling them. It's like more about selling them La Tourangelle, and the product just happens to be rock versus like trying to sell them rock, basically.
Kind of. I think I'm just trying to be realistic because, in a sense,
No, we agree with you there, and that's been a common theme across all the episodes. Is like it is always about those key purchase drivers, and it's really about those emotional purchase drivers more than it is educating on this very complex topic that's known by less than 1% of the world's population.
Totally. Well, and just to expand on that point, if you educated on everything else whether you did or you didn't, but if you did everything else right, but your product didn't taste great, who cares? Because nobody's going to buy it again anyways. So I love the fact that you're leading with like that emotional, which is the key, purchase driver, right? Lead with it or sell to emotions and do everything else right, but know that that's not necessarily going to be what makes somebody pick up the product and take it home with them and buy it again. So I think it's a great learning.
Yeah. I mean, look, what I just described with refined avocado oil and our avocado oil, which contains virgin avocado oil, I gave a technical explanation. But what I do with consumers, I said, look, it should taste good. If there is no taste, someone stripped out the taste out of it. Because if you eat an avocado, it tastes like something. If you strip it out, now you're talking over-processed. If you're thinking, that's what I like about the current trends of our processed food, and you should go away from it. Because that's really a very simple way of saying it. If it's going to be over-processed, you're going to tweak nature. It's not going to be great. At the end of the day, the best diets are simple. They're just, vegetables, roast stuff that you cook, that you preserve the natural nutrients in it. Because it's not always available, and time and money and so on. But so I like to say that ours tastes good, and that's what makes them different. Because if it tastes good and it has a beautiful color, all these things truly technically means it's going to be good for you. But I'm not going to go into the technical explanation of why. Just if the walnut oil should taste like walnuts. If it doesn't, you may want to go away from the brand you're buying because it's not going to give you much. Okay, walnut is super specialty.
This is maybe a self-serving question because I'm this consumer. I mean, I have usually just olive oil and coconut oil in my pantry at a time. I don't use any of these other oils that y'all make. Do y'all think about trying to move people into a greater breadth of oil consumption? Like, do you sit there and say, hey, we want to move that type of consumer into also buying walnut oil for some reason, for some culinary application? Is that at anywhere in the strategy, or am I totally off on that one?
No, I guess we should do that maybe. It turns out that we're a small country, and so like our true power is limited sometimes.
If it's an idea for me, Matthew, you probably shouldn't do it. So maybe not, but I'm just curious.
No, but look, for you, so you're having olive oil and coconut oil. Great. Extra virgin olive oil is fantastic. Coconut oil has its benefit too. What I guess what you just described, I think what you're missing in your diet would be omega-3, and that's so you having a bit of walnut oil, which is going to give you omega-3, and also just brings a bit of diversity to your salad dressings or your cooking. It's just interesting to have different flavors. So that's what I would add another oil to your set, just one, either a sesame oil or a walnut oil, something that brings you the essential fatty acids that you're missing in the ones you're adding, because olive oil is super high in oleic acid, doesn't have the rest. So that's why a bit of diversity. It's like saying I'm eating carrots. It's good for me, carrots. Yeah, it's awesome, carrots. But if you only eat carrots, it's not that great. You need also a bit of other things. Like zucchini are great too. Like whatever, just bring something else to the table.
Yeah, I like it.
AC, get rid of the monoculture in your oil collection. I guess technically it's a biculture, but to focus back on regenerative principles, biodiversity and or oil diversity is really the key to health.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I'm curious. I want to. We continue to not talk about Regen, and I apologize for that to anybody listening. But
I thought we talked about Regen for a long time. I think you need to be nicer to us.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're doing great. But I want to talk about, oil is a really contentious space right now, especially with polyunsaturated fatty acids and seed oils. And Matthieu, you are obviously a wealth of knowledge in the oil space. I'm curious to get your take on, like, number one, why seed oils are getting such a bad rep today. Two, whether or not you think it's valid, or does it kind of fall down into some of these other categories of, like, it's the way it's refined, it's the container that it's in. So give us your high level take on the PUFA controversy happening today.
Yes. Well, yeah, I think there is lots of. I'm a bit surprised by some of the stuff I hear. Okay, so what people complain about, which makes sense, is that they're like, look, America, since the 50s, people are being overweight. There is massive amount of diabetes. It's terrible. Absolutely true. Yeah. Look at the consumption of veg oil and the rate of obesity in America. It's the exact same line. Oh my God, this is veg oil. I'm like, no, it's freaking fast food, But yeah, fast food is veg oil because if you have French fries, if you have chips, chips has 40% fat. Mm-hmm. So if you have a sandwich and you eat chips with your sandwich, it's 40% fat. Yeah, maybe not the best nutrition choice you could do. It's 40% fat. And in fact, whatever fat, seed oil or not, is under 20 calories per serving. So it's a lot of calories. Yeah. When you go to a fast food place and you have, a burger with a bunch of bread, which is refined flours, and then refined oil and, shitty French fries, yeah, man, that's really not that great. Once in a while, it's fine. But if it's every day or more, it's horrible for your body. Yeah. So we know why there is obesity in the US. It's literally just the nutrition choices that are being made and pushed, and what's made available for cheap is really not the best. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it's coming from. And yes, veg oil is a big component of that because humans love salt, sugar, and fat. That just works really well. You put the three together, people are going to fall for it. Oh, here it is. Welcome to French fries.
Yeah. Guilty as charged, brother. Guilty as charged.
French fries and soda and life is great. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. So now that turns into seed oil is bad because seed oil is what is used most of the time for. It's bullshit to me because palm oil is horrible. Palm is a fruit. Oh my God, it's okay. It's a fruit. Like, what are you guys talking about? So now I can use palm oil because it's a fruit. No, it's really horrible. It's a bunch of saturated fat that's going to turn into cholesterol in your body. It's really not what you want. So overly refined, super hyper processed oil is not good. I agree. I'm the first one. Please go to extra virgin olive oil. Mm-hmm. But it's not because it's a seed or a tree. This is the separation that would make no sense to me. It's what is inside. So, palm oil is a tree, yeah, whatever, but it's still not great. So it's more, what is the fatty acid profile and what is the processing? How did you process the oil? If you extract the oil carefully and you don't refine it, even if it comes from seeds, it's great for you because tons of antioxidant and it's going to make your body like much stronger and you're going to age better and it's going to be great. If you have overly processed avocado oil or if you refine the hell of your olive oil, I don't know that it's that great neither. It's the same. So it does make sense. Yes, indeed, less soybean oil in high quantity in your French fries, less palm oil in high quantity in your French fries. That's a logical step. Please eat a carrot. There's no question there. It's going to make you better. There's no question there. Now, so should people go to olive oil? Yes, extra virgin olive oil. But if it's to go to refined olive oil, maybe not. So yes, so the seed oil, I think it's a simplification. I think there are a lot of really great stuff driving it. Like most of these fads and nutrition stuff, usually it's logical and it does push the needle in the right direction. But usually people tend to then course correct later on. Be like, okay, well that was remember Atkins diet and everything protein and whatever. Every one of these trends were excessive, but yet they were somewhat grounded in reality, which was that indeed having a massive amount of overprocessed oil in your diet is not great. There is no question there. And I'm an oil maker. I know that's not what I'm pushing. I'd rather say less oil, but higher quality oils. That's what you want. And higher quality doesn't mean that it comes not from the seeds. It means that it's a good fatty acid profile and that hopefully you don't have too much refining so that you can keep the antioxidant in the way naturally. Now, That's the response. Obviously, now you see some stuff online that says that omega-6 is terrible, and it's going to give you it's going to create inflammation in your body. This, I don't believe in it at all, and I think it's bullshit. And I want to, when you see what the Institute of Medicine is saying, obviously now I'm sure like people are like, oh my God, this is true. I tell you, like, really show me a study. Omega-3. I mean, that's, what I'm saying. To me, it's self-serving, and then you have all this lobby who are trying to push their own stuff in there. So you have the guys who just raised $50 million to make fake oil in a freaking lab. We're using GMO shit with fake sugars fed to like some weird cells. And they're like, this is much better. And so now they're going to push it. Everybody had their own agenda. So the nutrition side around polyunsaturated fat being bad, I don't buy into that because polyunsaturated is way better than saturated fat. And if unsaturated fat is bad, then don't have any type of avocado oil or olive oil because they're full of unsaturated fat as well. And if polyunsaturated fat are bad, sorry, dude, omega-3 are really good for you. That's why people take fish oil. And so, look, I think at the end of the day, there's lots of different things to put in the same bag, and eventually it becomes seed oil is bad. That's easy to say.
Right.
Look, if it's going to lead you to have less overly processed refined soybean oil or veg oil, I'm all for it. Great, whatever it takes, just please go to an extra virgin olive oil or good high quality avocado oil. It's great. But when you're going to fry high temperature anyway, you're going to need refined product. In that case, I would recommend organic and Regen. And that's what I would recommend because that's better. And at least you're promoting the right type of agricultural practices. And it's going to be a seed oil. It's going to be a sunflower oil. Canola, maybe not that great for high temperature cooking. So what I believe in is that if you go to high temp cooking, go to organic iolic sunflower oil. It's perfect. And if people think I'm crazy and stupid, they should talk to their doctors. And I'm sure they'll, like, unless they went through 20 years of studies with a PhD. But, so the YouTube stuff around seed oil is a mixed bag of good stuff and some things that are very excessive. But if in the end it pushes people to spend a bit more and buy the right quality product, why not? But if it's to buy a refined avocado oil thinking it's the solution, frankly, I guarantee you that it's a fad and it's BS. And it's going to be gone in a few years. But let people do whatever they want to do. I mean, it's fine.
Right. I can't help but as you tell that story, and I really appreciate you sharing all of that, it just reminds me so much of like the anti-meat movement fad and how that sort of is having a backlash now. And it's no longer about like, don't eat meat. It's maybe don't eat meat from consolidated animal feed operations that are raised in unnatural environments and fed an unnatural diet. Like, do eat grass-fed, rotationally grazed, biodiverse rich diets that these cattle have. Like, that is much better. But to your point, like, that's complex. It's really hard. It's much harder for consumers to understand. It's a lot easier to say all red meat is bad, And I'm wondering, like, are we going to see a similar arc in the PUFA argument down the road? Like, will it be? Maybe it's not all seed oils. Maybe it's just the highly refined seed oils that are generally using these high heat, deep fat fryers and so on and so forth. So
right. Well, that's the whole point. There is like we misguided the arrow. The arrow should be pointed at the processing and maybe not the source. And that's also what fake meat did wrong. It's like they had this overly produced product, and that was also the problem. Like that wasn't the solution. So Matthieu, I actually feel like we should have covered this much earlier, but can you describe how y'all process the oils and how that's different than some larger industrial, like worse operation? Because I think another theme we see across people trying to work on Regen is like Regen doesn't just stop at the farm. It goes in through the processing, and both processes are trying to be as aligned with natural systems as possible.
Yes. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to become too technical, and then it's going to be unbearable.
Well, just give us the high level, like a third grade reading level, like what Anthony could understand.
Okay, I'll try to keep it very simple. I mean, at the end of the day, if you take anything and you try to extract the oil out of it, if it's an olive, if it's a seed, if it's a pumpkin, if it's a walnut, if it's a sesame seed, there are so many things. So you try to extract the oil out of it. Usually on grapeseed, it's only 15% oil. Avocado, it's only 15%. And for walnut, it can go up all the way to 60% of what's inside the oil. So your job is to extract the oil. So you can do it different ways. You can do it physically. You can just press it or squeeze it or centrifuge it, but essentially use a mechanical mean to separate that. That's usually the best because if you use chemical, you're going to have a much higher yield of extraction, but usually you're going to also like get more bad stuff out of it with it. So more more waxes are going to come in the oil, more things that you're going to have to remove afterward.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is the pressing has to be careful, and you want to have a respectful, not too harsh environment process to extract so that you don't get all the crap out of it, or you don't destroy the antioxidant on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because antioxidants are fragile. So if you go high temperature, you're just going to burn them on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have an oil. If the seed or the fruit you use to make this was clean and high quality, then the oil is virgin and you can actually eat the oil right away. You may have to filter it, but that's it. That's going to be your best product because you have all the natural stuff that came into the oil and they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
If the product you used initially is not that great, maybe it's not food grade because it touched something, whatever it is, then you're going to have to refine it. So now what you're going to do, you're going to do a bunch of processing to clean it. And that's going to strip a lot of the antioxidant. It's also quite necessary depending on the application.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you
is
refine
refining always heat? Is it always heat? Okay.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
But there are different ways to refine. You can do a chemical refining. You can do a physical refining.
Mm.
You can do a refining that you're going to bring heat for 250 or 450 Fahrenheit for an hour, or you can do it for 1 minute.
Wow. Mm.
So it's going to be different. And so there are different ways to refine. So that's kind of what it is. Now, is it bad for you? There is a big difference between what you think is philosophically bad and what is nutrition-wise bad.
Mm.
I'm saying there are a lot of people who are against stuff. Really, to be honest, if you ask any type of scientist, they look at you like it doesn't make a difference. I can't see the difference in my lab. But you think it's important, so that matters. And then there's stuff that are truly important. So what's clear, again, I want to say, if you really care for oils and you really care for nutrition, please try to take an oil that tastes good, okay? Because that means it was not fully refined and not all the stuff were stripped. Obviously, there are different ways of stripping this stuff, and you'd rather go with the physical refining. But to be honest, there is no way you can tell on the shelf. I mean, there's no way. I mean, even as an oil specialist, you really have to know your supply chain to understand how they do it, because it's going to depend on some oils you can physically refine, some you just cannot. It's not going to work.
Right.
So it then becomes quite tricky. And does it make a big difference in nutrition? You could argue against it. That's
right.
Yeah.
I actually want to expand on this a little bit. Number one, AC, I really appreciate the question. And Matthieu, I really appreciate the answer because it helped me to understand, as we were having this conversation, I was thinking to myself, why would there be so many more refined oils? Because to me, that feels like an extra step. But if I'm understanding what you shared, Matthieu, it's that some of these other companies, and I'm generalizing here, are using that chemical extraction piece to get a higher yield because then they're getting, essentially more dollars out of their product. And because of that, they have those additional byproducts along with the good and the bad that they have to get rid of, that they don't care about the nutritional value. So they're doing that extra refinement step to have, again, more yield, cheaper quality. And that's why people go with high refined because it's essentially cheaper and you get more, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the only thing I would say in the caveat from what you just said, that you kind of describe it as if it was a evil intent. Oh my God, they're trying to make more money. No, it's just that that's the specification. Every food maker has the same specification, and they want refined oil because they want something that is neutral in flavor. They want long shelf life, and they want to be able to use it again and again. And that's why people refine oil. It's not for the pleasure of it. It's because it does create a very functional product. And so it makes sense. Now, is it good to have too much of that? No. And that's what people are coming to realize because, but then it goes back to the food industry and how our food system is set up. The food industry, us as CPG food makers, we make money of this stuff. Okay, so we're trying to sell more product that is processed. If you go to a farmer's market and you don't buy anything at the supermarket, I'm not that happy because I'm trying to make money off you selling, packaged foods. CPG is consuming packaged foods. So that's kind of that's the food system we were built in, is that people have an incentive to sell processed food to folks because they make money while processing. But anyway, I guess trying just to say that, go back to the seed oil. I think it's all about slow food. It's all about nutrition and trying to get back to the roots and more like, hey, just go back to a bit more raw stuff. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Look,
agreed.
I'm all about this. It's simple. It's just, God damn it. Don't, just make a vinaigrette yourself. It's super simple.
Yeah.
Just buy a bunch of produce and just shred it. It's not expensive. And you'll have a beautiful salad and it's going to be incredible for your health. And is it seed oil that you use to make the vinaigrette or not? Frankly, at this point, your health is great. Okay. Now, obviously, if you're going to use an oil to make this dressing, you're going to be better off using extra virgin olive oil, high quality avocado oil, or good walnut oil, or good sesame oil. The antioxidant will be bombastic for your health. It's going to be fantastic. No question there. Now, if you're going to go to fried stuff, the oil has to be refined. And so, but it's not bad for you. It's just that you don't want to eat too much of it. It's just, so it's like meat, you were saying. Yeah. Meat is not great for the environment, but does it mean you have to become vegan? I mean, now that's kind of an extreme kind of like going, yeah, why not? If you think it's the right thing to do. But there are many things in between. You don't have to go from eating meat every single day, every meal, to like being a vegan. Maybe it's just a bit less.
I got to push back. I got to say, I think bison's fantastic for the environment. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think, it's the ruminant animal that belongs in North America. We need more bison on this land to restore our grassland. So I'll throw devil's advocate on that one. But I totally agree with you. And I think my biggest takeaway, based on everything you've shared, and I really appreciate all of the information, is eat food that has taste. Eat food that tastes the way it is intended to taste, which essentially means it is less refined and or less processed. And I think one thing when we like take a step back, Anthony's going to hate me for referencing this book again, but the Dorito effect and how we add flavors to things because we've stripped the flavor and nutritional density out of our food. Like that's a big part of this problem. That's a cultural problem. That's like really hard for a single brand or a single farmer or anybody to have to solve for. But that's why it's important that we have these conversations and we can all learn like how food is really made and how these processes can impact, human health, planetary health, and everything else.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, but let's remain optimistic. There are forces that are trying to push us and sell us crappy stuff. Very large company in America, which essentially have thousands of employees trying every day to make you feed burgers and like over-processed French fries and crappy stuff. But there are also a lot of people trying to sell the right thing. So I think it's this balance of the two, trying to push both sides. I'd rather be on the side of trying to sell the good stuff. That's what I'm doing.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're with you there, brother. We're happy to be on the same side as you, I think.
Exactly. Thanks so much.
Take us into the future. I mean, what's coming down the pipeline the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years for the brand?
Well, more Regen. Look at it. The organic Regen olive oil we're launching. I'm hoping that we can transition more folks into better farming. Trying to really, for us, the next few years, our Tourangelle is still a very small brand. And we feel we have tremendous, tremendous potential. And so it's really about more communication, more advertising, being a bit more aggressive in getting our stuff out there. And I think that's really going to be our focus because we have tremendous growth opportunity. And I think, we feel we have the win in ourselves, meaning when you do organic Regen stuff, you feel you have the win in yourself, like it's really going the right direction. All this discussion around seed oils or whatever fad or whatever food trend comes up, it always pushes in the right direction of saying, yes, pay attention to what you eat. Mm-hmm. And our brand is just going to get bigger and grow bigger because we're going to try to do the right thing. There'll be room for a lot of different people, but I think that's the future. So I see our company growing quite a bit, our brand story and using this power to do the right thing. And so that's really what the future is all about. And so we're very committed to our mission and very committed to staying independent, family-owned. This is not a short-term play where, you flip the company, sell it in 2 years, make a killing, and go to Florida to enjoy money, whatever it is. No, we're trying to do the right thing. So so I've been there for 20 years. Maybe I'll be there for another 20. But the goal is to just, push the right stuff. And so that's what the next few years will be about. So it's going to, obviously, in France, we launched a line of sauces. We have mayonnaise, béarnaise. It's the same. We launched a line of sauces. They're just like you would do at home. Same ingredients, done under vacuum, no added sugar, no added preservative. Tastes delicious. And the oils that we use and the ingredients we use, we're trying to be intentional in picking stuff which pushes in the right direction. Obviously, it's premium, so it's still more expensive than the basic stuff. So, but as it's going to scale, we're going to be a bit. We'll be able to work also with supermarket that takes less margin, so we can be a bit more competitive. But so that's a direction we're getting into the condiment category right now, only in Europe, but it's going to come to the US and say later this year.
Super exciting.
And again, I think it's going to be for us a way to have muscle that we can try to push. Better nutrition, better education. I want to say we also have a Tourangelle Foundation. With my wife, we have a community garden. We actually partnered with Yellow Farm to Fork, so we do edible gardens at school. And we're really trying to educate kids It's very basic stuff. Come to the garden, pick a tomato, cut vegetables, make a salad, realize how simple it is, how delicious it is. It doesn't have to be expensive. And your nutrition is so much better off. So we do that. So today, for example, as we speak, we have about 40 kids in our garden, which are actually every Thursday right now we have field trips. And it's really awesome to see these 7, 8, 9-year-old kids who are just, they're like, this is the best day of my life. It's awesome. And you're like, you're literally just going to your garden. Really expensive. So that's what we do. So that's what, so the business, the big money stuff, but the things that really makes you happy is this type of things. 40 kids having a blast in the community garden, that makes my day. I tell you that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
When you have the olive oil SKU, then you'll have 3 rock SKUs, olive oil, flax, and sunflower, or is it just the sunflower and the olive oil that are actual SKUs at this point?
So rock 2, actually, the olive oil is Regenified, another certification body.
Okay, interesting.
Nice. I think you're the only brand we've had on that has 2 different certications. Yeah, I'm amazed we didn't talk about this earlier.
Yeah, I know. Don't ask me the financial; they're not looking great. Okay, but you gotta be nimble initially. So you work with whatever is feasible and available.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, and it embodies your ethos, right? It's a good thing. AC, take us home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good segue into kind of a progress over perfection mentality, which I think will underpin the answer we're going to get on this last question, Matthew, that we ask everybody, which is, how do we get Regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously I'm going to talk about olive oil is the biggest category. I mean, if you look at oil in America, at retail, you essentially have veg oil, which is a big, big chunk, olive oil, which is pretty much the same size chunk, and then a bunch of other oils. So if seed oils and all this soybean and all these things, I mean, it's very price driven, so it's going to be a challenge to be organic and regenerative. You could argue that a lot of this land that is used to, or could just simply be regenerative, or take some of the regenerative practices, which I think is happening slowly. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be tough to measure, but I think it's going to be happening because it's the right thing. And farmers are clever. If you can reduce the cost of chemicals you put into your land, it's better bottom line. Yeah? Right. So I think that's already happening, but we can't really measure it. On the olive oil side, can organic be the dominant stuff? I think, it's a bit challenging because if you do high density planting on olive, which is, really the way of the future these days, to say you want to be organic is you accept a significant risk, and there is a cost of risk. And most human beings want to have extra virgin olive oil. They don't want to pay always. Maybe they cannot pay always the premium for organic. So, organic regen 50% market share. That's a steep climb. You're saying, that is organic olive oil 50% of the category? It's not. Mm-hmm. So, in a sense, you need that. But can you have regen practices in place? Maybe not fully organic. I think there is a very high likelihood because I think governments, or I would say communities, will have a really, really strong incentive to try to capture CO2 in farming. And I think that's what's happening already. I mean, all the scope 1, 2, whatever, all this stuff is pushing in that direction. Mm-hmm. So it's possible. Now, is it going to be the rock or not? No, it's going to be, because typically rock wants a lot of different elements to come together for it to be rock certified. Whereas maybe you're going to be a bit more pointed on trying to make impact. So is it possible? Not in this exact current configuration, but I think it's definitely the future. I mean, look, it's global warming and is a reality in every single country. Every single community is adjusting to it. So by 2050, you're talking 25 years. I think we'll have made tremendous progress in trying to mitigate some of the production of CO2 and other gases. It's not the only one. So somehow, I think farming is moving the right direction. No, whatever. So yeah, it's positive.
I like how you always wrap with optimism in all of your comments. I do enjoy that.
Absolutely. Hey, look, it's good food. Yeah? It's about having a good moment together, and it's that's why we cook, and that's why we bring friends together on the table. Isn't it? So,
no doubt. Amen. With homemade dressings from La Tourangelle oils. So want to give all of our listeners a chance to check out the website. It's usually, I'll just say it, but this time I'm actually going to spell it. It's LATOURANGELLE. TOURANGELLE.com. LaTourangelle.com. Matthew's holding up his shirt for the listeners who can't see it. You also can't see my cardigan, which I apologize for.
Oh my God, everything I'm punching it.
But yeah, thank you so much for sharing everything. I learned way more than I ever thought I could know about oil in this hour. And I also feel like if I sat down with you for 4 hours, my brain would just explode with the amount I don't know about oil. So really appreciate the time. It's been fascinating to learn.
Cool. Nice to see you guys. Thanks so much for
Agree. Thanks for joining us. And number 2, we will do at the mill in California, so Kyle and I can actually process some oil. I'm looking forward to
Hell
it.
yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks, Matthew.
Cool. Cheers.
For show notes, episode transcripts, and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also find our Regen recaps on the website. Regen recaps take less than 5 minutes to read and cover all the key points of the full hour-long conversations. You can check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to future episodes, and share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.